No, yes. Is it recording? Who cares? Let's do
Oh
it.
my,
Hey, yeah, man. Thanks for. I've had been having people bail left and right the last week. I mean, I get it. People have jobs and shit, and they get sick. But because I'm a selfish asshole, I'm like, why would you bail on me? So, yeah, man. So, TPC 137 available on all the BitChute, YouTube, Vimeo, Spotify. Blah, 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 blah. My buddy
it's
Phil.
available everywhere you get your information.
Everywhere you get your fucking information. You can even Morse code. You want it in Morse code? I'll make it happen. Smoke signals? I got you.
If you're in solitary somewhere and you need to get it, we will tap on a pipe, whatever it
Fuck
takes.
yeah. Braille? Whatever you need, man. Fucking backwards Latin? Demonic chanting? No, we will not do that because we don't support satanic cults. But,
No.
except for that, we got you. So, yeah, my buddy Phil. Yeah, so you did a podcast with me the other day, and we were talking about, towards the end, you were talking about mushroom hunting. And at first I thought you were just kind of like making shit up. You were saying like weird words and stuff. And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, those are actual morel and chanterelle. And I was like, oh, these are actual. And I kept listening to it. I don't know why. There's something about it that was just kind of mesmerizing. I don't know why. It's just one of those things you can't put a finger on. And I looked it up, and it was like, yeah, it's like morels are like, why are these sought after? It was, what is special about them? How'd you get into it? There's going to be less of me talking and more of you talking. I'm just curious. What is mushroom hunting?
That's a good question. Morels are quite tasty, but for me, and they're quite expensive if you buy them at the store. So that I think that allures some people. Like, oh, they're valuable. It must be good. But for me, I just like being out in the forest. I love it, and any reason to get out in the forest is awesome. And if you add like a scavenger hunt element to it, it makes it just like, I don't know, 100 times more fun. And so what happened was I have some friends that were mushroom hunters, and eventually they invited me to go with them. And then I saw this one guy that was a friend of mine, was like obsessed with morels and going and finding them up in the mountains. There's like basically three kinds of morels around forest, but we're over here in the Pacific Northwest, and they don't grow that plentifully. So the only way you can really get them in plentiful numbers is to go to an area where there was a forest fire the year before or the previous year. And what happens is they have a mycorrhizal relationship with the tree, which means that they live in symbiosis with certain kinds of trees, and mostly like evergreens, Douglas firs, or maybe cedar, stuff like that, but evergreens. And when there's a forest fire, it kills all the trees in that area, and then the mushroom will detect that its buddy up there has died, and so it will use all the remaining energy that's left in the underground blanket, which they call the mycelium. It'll use all the rest of its energy it has stored in there to create fruits to spread its seed far and wide one last time. They actually don't have seeds; they have spores. But that's the general chemistry of it. So you'll how we'll approach it is when the time comes, which is like late May into June, around here, and maybe into July if you're lucky, and it's just that kind of year. And we'll look up the burns that we had the previous year, and also the year before that, if just as sort of a backup. But generally, you want the burns from a year before, and we'll look at where the burn was. Is it on public? Yes. Okay, that's cool. We can go there. Is it on? Is it accessible? Like, is there a 4x4 track or something that goes up there? Okay, like, do we have a 4x4 that can get there, or are we just like in the minivan? And then how close can we get? And is it only 3 miles away? that we can hike 3 miles, but if the topography goes like this for like 2,000 feet, that's going to be an all-day hike, so that's not going to work either. So you kind of have to plan out the topography that way, and you can also look at the maps and see if there's some water in there, if there's a stream, or if there's been rain. That's always really helpful. But a lot of times in these areas that we're going, they're sort of east of the pass from Seattle, so they're dry areas. Anyway, once you get east of the mountain passes, it gets real dry real quick. And it's towns like, if anyone out there wants to look up like areas that we go, it's like Leavenworth, Wenatchee. These are like mountain towns. And then we'll start looking out there, and hopefully you find some. That's the one major kind around here is the burn morel. And then they also have what you call forest morels, which are also known as naturals. And those are bigger, but they're much harder to find, many-fold, exponentially more rare. So I found a bunch one time when I was with my friend, and he was in the burn area, and I was in this adjacent area that didn't burn, and I found like maybe a couple dozen big, like kind of big ones, or like the size of my hand almost, and he was finding like these little ones because those are the burn morels, are like small. And I was like, yeah, I found them over there. I was new and I didn't know that you had to stay in the burn area. And he was like, I think those are naturals. Those are forest morels. And that's about as many as most people find in a lifetime, like he found in an afternoon. And that's just one of those beginner's luck sort of stories.
Yeah.
And there's also such thing that like I'll see every year around this time on like beginning of the summer on mushroom forums online is landscaping morels. So a lot of times when there's landscaping that happens, there's morels will just pop up like in totally suburban areas, and I'm not exactly sure why. And I've only ever seen them in person once, landscaping morels, but I've seen them in the message boards tons of times to where it would make me think, oh man, they're out there everywhere, because the Facebook group has tons of landscaping morels. But I used to be a landscaper, and so I'd go to dozens of different yards, and I only saw them in a yard one single time. So it's pretty dang rare. And I guess in addition to that, there is one more kind of morel. What do they call that? I don't know. It's escaping me right now. But what is that other?
Forest, or there's natural, fire, natural, burns, landscape.
Yeah, I think I covered. Those are all the major ones, but they can pop up from time to time elsewhere too.
So what is it? Like, what is it about?
I'm not sure.
Are they delicious? Is it just like a human created value? I guess all value is human created, but
and totally. I mean, they taste really good, but it's not. It doesn't like change your life when you eat them. I think it's a scarcity thing. Like they're hard to find, and then because they're so laborious to get your hands on, they're expensive. Mm-hmm. So because they're expensive, people are like, oh, they must be really good. And they are really good, but they're not worth $50 a pound like they are when they first hit the market. And they eventually go down, but it's rare to see them anything less than $20 a pound. And that's pretty dang expensive for mushrooms.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just, it's when you find it, it's a rush. It's like it's a dopamine rush. Like when you're looking and you finally find them and you've put all this work into it. You were looking at topographical maps and you drove 2 hours and you plotted it out and you found the burn, and hopefully there's not a whole bunch of other people there. A lot of times you go to an area and you think you're clever, but then there's like dozens of other people there looking in the same place as you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
that's just the way it goes. But sometimes you can find really isolated spots where no one else was willing to go, and that's when it's super fun. And it's just awesome to go like deep off trail. Like most of the hiking we do out here, or I do at least, is just going to be like on a trail somewhere to a lake up in the mountains, or it's going to be something like that. And this is an opportunity to just fucking go
Yeah.
into the uncharted territories, just explore a little bit.
Yeah. I was thinking like, yeah, I mean, I don't like mushrooms, period. Like, you ever see them on like salad or like pasta, I don't like them. But like, yeah, I'm just trying to, I mean, I guess it's maybe something like a 4-leaf clover where it's like there's nothing actually like great about it. It's just a little green plant. But it's, I guess, yeah, like the dopamine. Well, I've never found a 4-leaf clover. But I imagine it's like, I don't know, for like me, like finding podcast guests, and then like I find one, and then like I link it to the right subreddit or message group, and then I, you know, if each episode averages like 40 views in like the first 2 days, and then like I'll every once in a while I'll just kind of like I feel like I just connect one, and it'll get like 200 and like a couple subscribers. I average like a subscriber every 3 days. So if I get like an episode where there's like 300 views and like 3 subscribers in a day, like that's huge. And yeah, definitely like on the surface it doesn't mean anything, but for me there's definitely like a giant satisfying dopamine. Like I solved the puzzle.
Yep.
The mouse going through the maze. I got the cheese. Like
yeah,
I guess
there's definitely some sort of survival
reward.
Some sort of evolutionary psychology tied into it. And both of these things that we're talking about, whether you get more subscribers or you find a mushroom, it ties into that dopamine reward system.
What a weird
inspires
thing.
Us to improve and stay alive.
What a weird thing that is. It's like we don't even have to do it, but we're like seeking that reward. But yeah, there's something like deeply satisfying. You know, if you get it right the first time, nothing's really that great that you get right the first time. It's when you fuck it up 100 times and then you finally nail it, and you're just like, I did the thing. But
yes.
So, can you sell these? Because when you were first telling me about them last time, I was like, oh, these have to be like psychedelic, like because you go on this like hunt and you find them, and it's like we've got the shaman flesh, and you go back and take it, and you have a divine interaction with God.
Some people do sell them, and actually, you know, you're in the right spot if you see a whole bunch of like rundown cars, because that means the migrant pickers are there. And like a lot of other places, the migrant pickers are like Latinos, and they actually would warrant their own documentary on their own. I think this subculture of mushroom picking migrant workers, and they start in California every year. They start somewhere in like mid to northern California, and they'll start in the mountains, and they just go out with their 5-gallon buckets, and they send out scouts and everything. They have their more experienced people that are like the leaders of the group, and they'll scout areas, and then and I'm sure they know better than anyone where they're growing, and then they'll just send out like teams of people. There might be between 40 and like 100 people will descend on this area, and they just head out into the forest with their 5-gallon buckets and collect the burn morels. And those, if you see those in stores, and we'll see them around here in the Northwest for sure, and they're the burn morels because they're small, and they'll even have like ash on them.
Really?
Yeah, from the burn areas. And we've seen those guys out there before, and they can be a really good resource, like if they're willing to talk to you about like where they're growing or where they're going next. I don't think they mind telling one person, you know, just like one gringo that's going to go and pick some. Sometimes they like to share, but
yeah, I feel like they
other times they can be kind of drunk and sketchy. And I had a guy once that was like, he seemed really drunk, and it was like back at camp. I think they were done for the day, and I was done for the day too. And he was trying to like ask me how much I got, and wanted to see in my bag and whatnot. And he was, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. So I was just like, sorry, dude, got to go. Threw my bag in the car and drove off.
But, yeah, fuck that. About to get killed for a bag of morels.
And they start down there in California, and they just work their way north all the way up into British Columbia until the season's over, and they just live that migrant worker life. And then I don't know. I think one guy we talked to lived in like San Diego. He was a Mexican guy, but then I've met some other people that were like from Texas. And it's that migrant worker life, man. But of course, anyone can go and pick apples, but I think it takes a special fella
to go get morels. Yeah, I have this imagery in my head that I know is based in no reality, but I like to imagine that they're like a bunch of gnomes, like really short gnomes, and maybe they go out almost like they like sweep the forest, kind of like elbow to elbow, with little lanterns, and like
they generally do. They don't have lanterns, but they have. I mean, the most basic necessities. I always go out with a backpack full of food and like survival stuff, and I have a GPS on my phone, so I can at least find my way back to where I started, even if I don't have cell reception. I used that app, Map My Run. It's like it was bought up by Under Armour, so they own it now. But even if you don't have cell reception, it'll show you like kind of a line of where you've gone. So I can always know, like, I can cross back to the right area or back to where I started. But then I'll see the migrant pickers out there, and they just have like a bottle of water that's like 16 ounces, and that's all they've got. Got a bottle of water and a bucket.
Yeah.
And that's it. And sometimes they do get lost, but not very often. And they go out solo, and they spread out and like sort of comb the forest, but they're not elbow to elbow. I think they're like maybe within shouting distance.
Yeah, I'm creating this like whole fiction in my mind. Yeah. Some of them get lost, and they're so deep in the forest that they have no choice but to create their own little community. So they're like uncontacted morel hunting tribes out there.
It could happen out here, man.
So are there psychedelic mushrooms in the Pacific Northwest? Because I have no idea. Like, I like mushrooms, but now that I think about it, like, I actually have no idea where cubensis mushrooms actually grow.
Cubensis do not grow wild around here for the most part. They will. I have seen them grow outside, but that's only when people that were growing in their house, because that's the only way to really cultivate them around here is grow them indoors. But after you grow them, you take like the substrate, and most people just chuck it like out into a compost pile. And more than once, I've seen them start growing outside on a compost pile. And it's kind of like, I thought those weren't supposed to grow here. They had to stay at like 75 to 80 degrees, and it's definitely not that warm here at night, especially earlier in the season. But I don't know, maybe they hybridized or mutated to grow outside, but they will do that a little bit, like just in the compost pile. Maybe the composting action makes it warm enough for them.
Yeah, I don't know, something, organic exothermic shit. Are cubensis the only? They
also get worms.
Are cubensis the only psychedelic? I don't know anything about them. Like, I mean, like, I've taken them. I don't know actually about like the mycology.
I would say, first of all, I did bring a couple of my reference materials to show you.
Oh, awesome.
Audience. This is called psilocybe mushrooms of the world.
Is that McKenna?
It's one of the main. It's by Paul Stamets, and Paul Stamets is one of the two main gurus when it comes to mushrooms. And he's not just psychedelic mushrooms. This is a book specifically on psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin to be Specific. And but he's just an all-around mushroom guru. He wrote a really popular book called Mycelium Running.
He's been on Rogan.
It talks about how like mushrooms can be used to clean up nuclear waste and other amazing things such as that.
Yeah, he's been on Joe Rogan twice, right?
Yeah, he's a total mushroom beast.
Yeah,
and a wise man should be everyone's great uncle.
Yeah. And then
this
Terrence.
book is talking specifically about psilocybe, which is a psychoactive chemical that's found in mushrooms such as the cubensis, and which is probably the most popular kind in the world due to the fact that they're really easy to cultivate. I mean, relatively easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like around here in Seattle, growing wild, we have a kind of mushroom. It's called a cyanescen, and cyan is in the color blue because they bruise blue, and they're a psilocybe mushroom. And there's also a very powerful, I think the most powerful psilocybe mushroom in the world grows in this area, but more down in Oregon, on the Oregon coast, like areas like Astoria, which is famous for being the filming location of Goonies. And out there they have the azurescen, which is another name for blue, right? Cyan, azure. But those ones are the ones that are on the cover of the book right here.
Okay.
It's kind of dark.
I can see it.
And these ones haven't bruised yet, so there's no blue going on. But they're kind of like this caramel color. That's like one of the trademark signs. And then the white stem, because there's a lot of mushrooms that look caramely on top, but that white stem is one of the. And in person, it really pops. It's like, oh, that's it, all right. It's got that popping white stem, and those are super powerful, and the cyans are as well. But when I look for them, I just look for the cyans around Seattle because I'm in Seattle already, so it's easy to find them. And they like disturbed habitats, like places that have had wood chips laid down recently. So the easiest way to find those, and you want to stay on public land so you don't get busted for trespassing.
Yeah.
So the city parks, we have a lot of parks, and a lot of them are really vast, and they'll wood chip trees like even from within the park. And there's actually certain codes around here where there's like, it'll say Seattle City Park, and it'll have bars, like colored bars on the sign to the park. And it's actually, it might just be hearsay or legend, but I hear that those are codes.
Oh, yeah.
And like if it has a green bar, I don't even look at this anymore, but I heard back in the day that if it has a green bar, that means that they mulch from within the park, and then that'll be a really good area to go and look. But there's so many huge parks that if you just go walking through there, you'll find areas that have been wood chipped, and specifically it's like birch trees, like those like softwood, like white bark trees, that really create a perfect environment for the cyanescence. So how it goes basically is it just during the season I keep my eye out like at all times. If I go for a jog or something, I'm kind of like looking around for them, and then that's how I usually find them. It's kind of rare that I actually find them when I go and look for them, though it does happen more and more these years as I've just gotten better at it, I guess. But and sometimes me and a buddy or two will go looking. We'll go out some morning and go to like certain areas, and like the U District near the University of Washington for whatever reason. That area and that campus, you just start looking around, look for areas that have wood chips on the ground, and then you'll see some mushrooms and peek around. And at this point, like I've been doing it long enough where like I just see the cap, and it's pretty much 90% accuracy. Within 1 second or 2 seconds of seeing the cap, I'm like, boom, there's some right there.
And those are psychedelic ones?
Yep, those are the ones that we're looking for at that time, the azure or the cyanescence. And then I pick them, and then I don't really get to take them, as I do enjoy ingesting them, but for the most part, I'll just give them away.
Mm-hmm.
And like people do sell them. I used to buy them off people that way, but I don't need the money, and I'm not just going to be out there like who am I going to sell them to anyway?
Yeah,
I'm going to be like, hey man, want to buy some mushrooms?
Yeah, mushrooms.
Not my lifestyle at this point. I just pick them and have as much fun as I can, or just give them away in jars to people that are interested in having some.
Yeah, I remember in college it was like it's very hard to find. Even I was at UGA, which at the time was the #1 party school in the nation, and even then, it was hard to find mushrooms. You could find anything else you wanted. Mushrooms were always like, you had to start, if you wanted them, it was like, start asking around, and like through the pipeline, you might find them in like a couple months. It was like, I know a guy, my cousin's girlfriend's roommate, and it's like, you couldn't just find it. It wasn't just like weed.
I think if you made friends with some people with dreads,
one of my old roommates. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You had dreads, but
I didn't have dreads.
Oh, you didn't?
No, my roommate did. I had long hair. I didn't have dreads. My roommate had dreads.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said last time.
No.
But I think if you make friends with the hippies, you'll find mushrooms.
Yeah, you'll find them a lot. Yeah.
They always are. I don't know about. I think you could probably definitely find. What is that? Cubensis.
Yeah.
Because they will grow in the South.
Yeah.
And those are the classic cow pasture mushrooms.
Yeah.
Because they'll grow off the cow patties, and down in the South it's warm enough. I know, like Florida, so Georgia's got to be on that list too, and like places like Costa Rica, Mexico, Texas.
Yeah, I think it was Duncan Trussell that was like, why the fuck do like Indian people worship cows? And he's like, and then I did mushrooms, and I found out mushrooms grow on cow patties, and I was like, oh, that's why they worship cows.
Well, the Cubensi is actually from Africa, because so are cows.
And I guess everything is.
That's why they grow there. So it's not going to be pre-European influence.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the Europeans would take that and be like, "That's the devil. That's the devil for sure."
Yeah.
But then the native populations will be like, "This is
God.
The key right here.
This is God."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Us white people were like, how much money can we make? What do you mean it dissolves societal structures? Ban it, you heathen.
Exactly.
Burn them at the stake.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you? So if you read Paul Stamets, do you ever read any? I only read one of his books, Terence McKenna, Food of the Gods.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Terrence's work. I've never actually sat down and read one of his books, but I've listened to like long interviews, like 2-hour long interviews and stuff.
You can get lost.
He's a classic. He is a total classic for sure. But most of his stuff for me these days would be just preaching to the choir, echo chamber kind of stuff. Yeah,
no, I've 99.9% of my like interaction with is all lectures and stuff. But I remember I read his book Food of the Gods in like 2014. It's the only one of his books I've read. But it's really interesting, his like theory on like how we were like a maternal civilization, like very like loving. It was like no one wore clothes. It was all very like, loving, more kind of like, and granted it's all idyllic, and who the fuck can actually verify any of this, but it was, his idea was that there was like a way in which they were storing these mushrooms for future use. And one of the methods they were using, and they like inadvertently discovered like fermentation, like how to make alcohol. And so they would get these mushrooms, and they had, at some point somewhere in history, it was only like a matter of like, it was just like the odds. Eventually one of them would like drink this thing they had created thinking it was mushrooms, and instead they discovered alcohol. And for Terrence, you kind of have to like, as you kind of have to entertain like what you're listening to. It's all out there. But his idea was that when they accidentally discovered fermentation, however many thousands of years ago, they would drink it, get drunk, and that is what started the like flip between this like idyllic society that may or may not have ever existed and turned into like the paternal society. And his term is the dominator complex. And it's where we turned into this like, I have the most kids, look at my village, I have a castle, I have spears. And it was like, we went from being entertained by just like spirit and the stars and nature to this much quicker gratification fueled by alcohol. And that's what led to technological evolution. Is like we started to find satisfaction in like dopamine we were just talking about. Instead of like, oh, look how wonderful life is. Instead, it was like, I have this spear. Well, let's make a sharper spear. Let's make a better arrow. And it just led to one thing to the next. And fast forward 5,000 years, and now it's like, we have a space force. Do you have a space force? And it's like, it is accelerated to that. My iPhone's even bigger than yours. Like, it's
could be, man.
Yeah, I mean who fucking knows?
Was McKenna? I think it was the stoned ape theory.
Yeah, leaving the forests.
If there's this Alex Gray painting. You know Alex Gray?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know which one I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. It's the caveman with the mushroom, and he's like, he's like discovering speech while on the mushroom.
Yeah,
I like that theory as I don't know if has any basis in science.
Who cares? It's awesome.
I love the theory.
Yeah, yeah, I love that one too. Yeah, I think Bill Hicks had the bit. He was like, man, I think mushrooms pushed evolution more than anything. He does this little, he's like, and it's like these chimps, and they find a mushroom, and they're like, they slowly sit back, and then they like look up at the moon, and they're like, let's go to the moon. And it's like, fast forward, 1969, landed on the moon.
I've got a guy, I trade him cyanescent mushrooms for compost.
Oh, yeah?
He's got the bomb compost. Yeah. It's like pure horse manure.
Hell yeah.
Compost. And I'll trade him like a nice jar of that for a yard of compost.
Nice.
That's my kind of exchange for mushrooms.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I'll show you a couple other resources here.
Sure.
One, you might find this kind of cute. This is a mushroom hunting knife.
Okay.
And you've got your thing there. I guess it's supposed to be good for kind of like when you pinch it off, you can pinch it towards the blade there.
Sure.
And then on one side, it's got this little brush that folds out so you can clean up your mushroom. And then this is my own little adaptation. I put it on a retractable line because it's really easy to leave your knife behind in the forest. Because for whatever reason,
awesome, man.
It's really easy to leave anything behind. But that's the mushroom hunting knife. And then this is sort of the other main mushroom guru is this guy named David Aurora. And this is like the phone book, the encyclopedia of mushrooms. Mushrooms Demystified.
Jesus Christ.
It's a serious book. Yeah, it's basically the encyclopedia. You know,
it looks like a physician's desk reference.
Yeah, and it's just got this little section of colored photographs in the middle there. The rest of it's all just black and white, like encyclopedic
just
style.
Dense.
And he's got this other book called All That the Rain Promises and More, and it's like a pocket guide with a key and everything, and it's about this big, and it fits like in your back pocket of your jeans or whatever. And I don't really need that book anymore, so I think I've given it away as a gift probably a dozen times. I gave away my last copy because at this point I know of all the edibles that I'm looking for around here. I know what they look like. And if I'm going into the forest, I don't need it anymore either because I know what I'm looking for. And if I want to identify something, I'll bring it back and look it up in the big book.
Yeah.
But it's this funny book. It's got this goofy guy on the front with holding a trumpet. And he's also got like chanterelles. He's like in a tuxedo. And the story behind the picture was like he was a concert trumpeter, whatever you call those guys. And they had some time, and there was like forested area nearby. So he took his trumpet out there to warm up and go for a walk, and he found a bunch of morels. Or not morels, chanterelles. So he's got an armful of chanterelles and his trumpet, and he's in a tuxedo, and he's just a crazy, goofy-looking guy.
That's awesome.
So a lot of people think that is David Aurora on the cover, but it's not. It's just some goofy trumpeter guy.
Goofy motherfucker out there
it's
serenading.
It's a timeless photo. It belongs on the front for sure. But
that's awesome.
That's the other main book, and it'll even reference like if it has a little bit in there about chanterelles, it'll also say like DM page 256 to 258 for more information, and that's what this is referring to. The MD. I mean,
yeah. Mushrooms Demystified. That's crazy. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Do you think Is it Colorado that legalized, or Denver that legalized psilocybin or decriminalized it recently?
I believe so. It's happening. I keep
It's the foothold.
People will even send me like little bits about it. Like, hey, it's on the docket for like
the foothold. It's
in Boston or where, I don't know about that, but there was somewhere on the East Coast. A friend just sent me the other day that it was on the docket to be decriminalized in some major city. Like little by little, man.
It's the foot in the door. I have heard
that of all the substances, it's the least likely to have a call to the emergency room.
Oh yeah. Well, don't you need to eat something like, it's like something like 1,500 pounds of mushrooms? You'd have to eat 1,500 pounds in 60 minutes.
There is no lethal dose.
Yeah, it would kill you. Yeah,
mushroom.
It's like the thing that would kill you is the 1,500 pounds in your stomach. It would blow you open.
Yeah, exactly. And people are more likely to call 911 on edible marijuana than they are mushrooms.
Yeah, mushrooms don't
for
freak you out.
whatever reason.
Yeah,
and I mean, they can be out of your mind, like ego-openly crazy, but for whatever reason, people don't feel the need to call 911 as much as they do with eating too many pot cookies.
Yeah,
which can be quite uncomfortable.
That
for
can
sure.
Be,
I do not.
That
like
can be really
eating,
uncomfortable.
Do not like eating cannabis.
That's it can. That can be too much. That can be. Yeah, that can be uncomfortable. Psilocybin, in my limited experience, I've found that like the higher the dose goes, everything just starts to dissolve. Like, even like forgetting how to type, and it's like, I remember looking at my phone and like looking at the little letters on the keyboard, and I was like, what do these mean? It was like hieroglyphics. It was like I literally had to go by like muscle memory. I'd like put my thumbs on it and just kind of like let it happen. I'd be like, oh yeah, okay. But like looking at all like the little letters and symbols, it was just like might as well have been reading cuneiform. Yeah, I feel like if mushrooms just gets its like foot in the, that's what I was doing earlier. If it can just get its foot in the door, that is exciting, because it's like approaching the event horizon of a black hole. It's like, no, I don't know what's gonna happen after if these become like widely available. Dude, that's where shit starts to get weird.
When I was in Amsterdam, you could buy them at the head shops, and that seemed kind of crazy to me, but they seemed to be just fine with it.
Well, yeah.
In Amsterdam, like, society didn't crumble because you could go and buy mushrooms at a store.
No, society is always fine. When countries decriminalize everything, everything's fine. People are adults.
Actually, I went to Amsterdam in 2007, and a friend and I that I was traveling with, we bought a package of, they were Hawaiian Azurescens, and we split a pack of them, and they were so strong. They were just like out of our minds strong. We could still kind of walk around and stuff. And in fact, like as they were coming on, we went to the Van Gogh Museum.
Oh, nice.
And it was such a trip, my friend. That is one of the trippiest experiences of my lifetime, for sure.
That sounds
walking
insane.
Through the Van Gogh Museum. And just trying not to be like,
just getting goofy.
Yeah. Just like, okay, keep it cool, man. Keep it cool. Just look at the painting. Yeah.
I've always wanted to take and go visit like a historical site. And I don't mean like a Boston courthouse. I mean like the Great Pyramids or something. I've always wanted to go like walk like ancient, like the. I'd love to take mushrooms and go like sit next to the Sphinx.
That would be something.
That would be insane. Do you ever read or I guess you've seen the movie, Watchmen?
No.
Oh.
I've never seen that one.
Well, in the book, it's a graphic novel, but like the really smart guy,
Is that not Stephen King?
No, it's
Oh, I was thinking
it's someone more, Richard Moore. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, the really smart guy who's like the richest guy in the world, like self-made. He goes on. He's like obsessed with Alexander the Great, and one of the things he does towards like his parents die when he's young, and he inherits like $1 billion, but he gives it all away because he wants to build his own fortune, and he does it because he's brilliant. But one of the things he does is like he goes to like the Middle East or something, and like the final leg of his like self-discovery journey is eating like a ball of hashish and mushrooms and like walking amongst like the desert in Egypt or something. And he's like, I spoke to generations of dead kings and was touched by God. And it just shows him he's like naked under the stars screaming. And he like comes back to society and builds a corporation. But yeah, man, dude, Steve Jobs took LSD and said it was one of the most influential days of his life.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
it can be very powerful, like a gun. I've warned people before more specifically about LSD, is that it can be like a shotgun. It can take your life. It can save your life. It can take your life. It can blow your mind, or it can blow your head off.
How do you mean like bad, like
yep.
Implosion?
Mostly, I like to share this two instances that happened within a couple weeks of each other.
Okay.
It was a long time ago when I was in my earlier 20s, and I was taking psychedelics a lot, and it was like the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Let's just take psychedelics. Go into a movie. Let's take psychedelics.
Yeah.
Go on a hike. Let's take psychedelics. Got problems? Psychedelics. Having a good time? Psychedelics.
Yeah.
And so I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and her brother was living on the other side of the country, and he was in a marriage out there, and it dissolved, and he was having a real rough time, like suicidal. He was feeling suicidal. So she was like, don't do anything like that. Come out here, live with us in Seattle. You can just sleep. We had a 1-bedroom, so it was like sleep in the living room until you find a place. Just come out here and start a new life. So that's what he did. And after he was with us for like a couple of weeks, we were like, you should take some of this. And it was LSD. And so we did that, and he had an amazing time. And he'd never taken, I think he'd had a little bit of mushrooms before or something like that, but he'd never like really had a heroic dose, like a real cleansing trip before. And so he got totally cleansed. And then within the next couple weeks, he came out as gay to everyone, and that it just like started his life over, and like
that's awesome.
Started living his true life, and now he's doing good, and
that's awesome, man.
A lucrative tech job, and
that's awesome.
Great. And then but then that's the save your life.
I thought you were gonna say, and then a couple weeks later he shot himself. I was expecting that. I was like, oh no.
No, thankfully no. But
that's awesome.
Another friend, it was just like a couple months later, another friend was, it was around Thanksgiving, and our friend was in a marriage that was less than a year old, and his wife cheated on him, and he was in a real bad place. They were getting a divorce, and so I didn't have like a tie me down kind of job at the time. So, and my girlfriend was in college. So we were like, he's alone on the holidays. Let's drive down there and like spend it with him, go on an epic road trip when you're not in school. And so we got in the car and headed down to California, and picked up our friend, and we went to Big Sur, and we got rented a cabin type place. It was a super idyllic setting. And then we all took LSD, and then my friend like had a freak out, and it was like 12 hours of me being super high and trying to like bring him back into a positive or at least neutral space. He was in like a dark, all the trauma of his lifetime, collapsing down all around him all at once, headspace, and it was. And I thought like he might hurt himself. It was rough, and that's rough enough by itself. But then I was super high, all at the same time. So it was like within a short amount of time, you had both things. Like the LSD lifted up one person and like made them helped get their life on the right track, all in one like powerful trip. And then on the other side, it just like became the straw that broke the camel on the other side of the coin. And that was a very powerful lesson. Like, whoa, like this is
giveth
super
and
powerful
taketh
stuff, and it can save you or it can kill you. And it didn't kill my friend. Luckily, he's okay now. But I think one of the main things with the bad experience was he was coming off of antidepressants.
Yeah,
he was on like mood stabilizing type SSRIs,
Depakote.
And he just stopped taking them like abruptly. And so I don't think I've given people like a dose like that ever since. I've given people mushrooms or traded them and just handed them off. But I always tell people with anything psychedelic like that you should be in a good place. You don't necessarily, it's not required because like it can help you sort things out. But like if you're on antidepressants, coming off antidepressants, or if you feel like you're in a real unstable place where you might lose control, that's not a good idea. It could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And get into a more balanced headspace before you do anything drastic, like take a heroic dose of mushrooms or any other psychoactive substance.
Yeah, I used to naively had this view that they were always good for everyone all the time, any occasion. It can cure you, because I took them at the end of college, and it made me realize that I was not happy the idea of going to medical school. I really wasn't happy with the way my life was going, and it was a very good glowing experience for me. It was like, oh, I need to go find what I like. Fast forward 7 years, and I'm still on that journey of deciding, because this is in 2013, still finding, I like the podcast, but it took 6 years to figure what that point is that was a very good experience for me. But I now, as I'm older, I'm like, oh, this isn't like a blanket. I was all like, this is the best. If you have a problem, just take it. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, I read more and more about different cases and stuff, and it's like, dude, if you're someone that, you're not in an entirely like where I was in a bad place in that I was not happy with what I was doing. But aside from that, it was like, I was a 4.0 student. I was in great shape, paying all my bills, getting ready for med school, had a girlfriend. Like, I was a balanced person, just was not happy with where my life was going. It was like, oh, I'm about to go start a life I don't want to live. And so for me, I took them in a, quote, bad spot, and they helped me get out. But like true bad spots were like you don't have it all together. Like, you can't hold down a job, you can't hold down relationships, like your sleep's fucked up, you're on different shit. That could very well be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Yeah,
I've taken them in bad spots before, and it really was helpful. But like, I wasn't suicidal or anything. I think that's really what I mean by a bad spot. Like, I could see somebody, if they were suicidal, taking a whole bunch and then just being like, nothing,
nothing's real.
Ego death, nothing's real. I could just jump off this building now and I could blow my head off. But it seems like that could happen, though. I've never heard of that happening, even though that's like the folklore, like urban myth is like they took LSD and jumped off the roof because they thought they could fly. Yeah. So I think it goes without saying, it kind of goes back to that Bill Hicks thing. If you're on psychedelics and you think you can fly, try to take off.
Take it from the ground first.
Take it off from the ground.
You don't see birds taking the elevator. Try it from the ground, asshole. Don't ruin it for the rest of us.
For me, when I first took mushrooms, I was in like my early 20s, and I was like, wow, this is fun and beautiful. I love it. And then did it again, and it was like, this is so much fun. Me and all my friends having so much fun. Yay.
Yeah.
And then I took it like, I think the third time I had this like bad trip where it was like all my shadows were like looming over me, all my bad decisions, all my bad habits, all my tendencies to be dishonest or whatever.
Yeah.
And were over me, and I was like, oh man, no.
Yeah.
And then eventually the night it went by, and I was like, well, that sucked, that wasn't fun. And then some months went by, and then I took them again and was like, okay, let's give it another shot, should be fun again this time. And then like almost immediately it was like over me
again. They came
again.
back again.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here and like ruin my whole night for like 4 hours or 5 hours and just like hide from my shadows. I'm going to turn and face them and be like, come at me, motherfucker, like every last one of you. And it was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I found out, I kind of saw how like I had a cynical nature that was lingering from my teenage years that was really like holding me back from enjoying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Even just simple things, nature, certain kinds of music. I'd be like, no, I don't like that music because it's not intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, and it just got me like more in touch, almost with like a childlike kind of purity and optimism.
Yeah.
I've tried to carry with me ever since.
Yeah. If you can, I mean, it can definitely like you say, like I don't know of anyone that ever took it, and then what are the other like folklores, like he peeled his skin off because he thought he was an orange. Like that's some like drug scare shit. I could see if you were suicidal, but then again, I wouldn't be drinking alcohol either if you were suicidal. Like you probably shouldn't be doing nothing to exaggerate your mindset. But you were just saying, facing, got 3 more minutes, but facing your shadows. If you can, if you can get to a spot where it's like, oh, this darkness is creeping up, if you can like summon the courage to like face the shadows, and you're right, come at me, every last one of you, like I'll fight to the death, last stand.
My daughters just came in.
I thought you were telling me to be quiet. I was like, okay, sorry. No. If you can like get that courage to like face the monster, it can be beautiful. It can really be like, because I found like the monster isn't there to like scare you for the sake of scaring you. Like the monster wants you to overcome this. So it's not like if you face it and try to address your problems, it's not gonna like try to fuck you up. It's like a tutor or something. Like it wants you to do well. It wants you to pass. But like it's gonna scare you with the idea of an F on your test until you come and approach it. It wants you to get an A. And if you're right, if you can face it, that is where you can have lasting effects for years and years and years. That's what my trip was in 2013. It was just like, you are capable of like working very hard and getting what you want. But it was like you said, it was like I had this like dark view of the world. It was like, unless I have to work hard and like I don't enjoy it, then it's not worth doing. Like I got to become a doctor because it's difficult and unenjoyable. And it was like the overwhelming like feeling, or not even voice, but just like message I kept getting was like it's okay to love, like it's okay to be happy, like you can work towards it and make it something awesome. And that's what I think this podcast is. But it was like not everything has to be. I was often like what you just said. I was like that's silly, why are you doing that? You should be studying, you should be working hard, you should be getting ready. Don't you know that most of the world doesn't have clean drinking water? Like stop watching TV.
Keep building equity.
For Bill Hicks, look at my furrows of worry, my bank account, this has to be real. That's what me and my friend used to say after. We'd be like, man, remember those furrows of worry? Big. And we'll still text each other 5 years later. We'll be like, be like a picture of like a CEO. We'll be like, yo dude, look at those furrows. And I'll be like, terminal case of the furrows. But that's what I got out of it. We are right at 5 o'clock my time, 2 p.m. your time. Let's wrap this bitch up. Thanks for stepping in, man. It's I really appreciate it.
It's always good to talk about. I love talking about mushrooms and psychedelics. And I'll say, if anybody has any questions about mushrooms, I'm not Paul Stamets or David Aurora, but we can continue the conversation in the comments below. I'll check out the YouTube page from time to time, and if anybody's got questions, for me, I'll try to answer.
Hell yeah, man, and we'll save the next episode for ayahuasca.
All right,
man. Thank you so much for stepping in, dude. It means the world to me. People bailed, and then no one will fill in the clutch. Thank you, my friend.
I had the afternoon open, so I was like, fucking hey, let's do it.
Fuck yeah, man. I appreciate it. All right, buddy. Stay safe. Take care.
Next time.
All right, man. Peace.